as I said, here's part two. Destiny on Sam Harris. And again, what is it with this Trump? How sane and normal people could support him, and why do even mainstream media? Why do they pamper and skewer the whole thing? So here we go, part two, Destiny on Sam Harris.
I think the simplest cut at this for me, and I'm always surprised that it doesn't work on everybody, and there's just endless examples of it not working. I mean, it hasn't worked on half the country, but it really can come out in a very short paragraph, which is just that what we had was a sitting president who would not commit to a peaceful transfer of power. I mean, months in advance of the election. I mean, this was back in March or so. I think that the question was first put to him, and he clearly declined to abide by the results of an election unless he won that election.
Right.
And while the election was being run, he was clearly preparing the ground to call it fraudulent. And he then lied endlessly about having had the election stolen from him. I mean, the irony is that he's in the process of attempting to steal an election while claiming that it has been stolen from him. And in the end, we didn't have a peaceful transfer of power, right? So like that single desecration of the foundational norm of our democracy. I mean, it seems to me that we don't have the laws that we actually should have in place to punish a president who does this, right? To have a sitting president not commit to a peaceful transfer of power and then do what he can to ensure that we don't have one, it seems to me that that jail should await such a person, and we don't actually have the laws to accomplish that. But I
mean, I fully disagree on that last point. We had Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which was very clearly meant to prevent a person like this, at the very least, from holding future office.
Right. Well, so, but
and we do have criminal charges against him, but the Supreme Court is protecting him from those.
It's incredible. I mean, but the fact that
Supreme Court,
having that in the 14th Amendment is as ineffectual as it is in practice. In any case, why?
And that's the answer right there. Without the Supreme Court, he'd be in jail by now, right? In prison for the rest of his life, right? Treason, the whole thing. And again, Merrick Garland, I said this over and over, if Merrick Garland on January 6th, that night, arrested Trump, and they went forward, the indictments, the whole thing, and if the Supreme Court wasn't stacked, as we know, the Supreme Court is corrupt, then, yeah, Trump would be in jail for the rest of his life, right? And none of this would happen. He wouldn't be running for president. He'd be in jail, right? Prison, I should say.
Why do you think so many people, I mean, fully half the nation, one can, I guess, discount all the people who really aren't informed about this, but there are all too many people who know exactly what I just alleged to be true, which is that he didn't commit to a peaceful transfer of power, and we didn't have one. Why doesn't that matter, do you think?
Well, for some people, this is why I'm saying there's different issues that affect different players or people in different ways, and they all have different motivations for why they believe what they do. So for the average voter or listener, I would say a lot of these people just don't have all the information, and they are susceptible to all the ordinary follies of man. That me, and I imagine you, everybody is susceptible to. We hear things we want to hear. We tend to seek information we want to, find to affirm our biases and all this. This is just kind of what everybody is falling prey to some extent, and to some level in your life. For the content creators, there are far more interesting questions to ask there, but it depends on the person, it depends on the issue. One thing I would say when it comes to foreign stuff that I've been asking questions about, but it's hard to dig into it, I really wonder how much foreign pushing there is on some figures to just have positions that wholesale align with like Russian foreign policy, just like completely 100%. You're 100% alignment. You couldn't be a better spokesperson when talking about, like, it's the same talking points for the Ukrainian war, right? Oh, they're sending men off to die. There's no reason for this. Everybody in the East, it was a civil war the whole time, and Ukrainian biolabs and Nazis, and the United, now they're starting war in Russia with an invasion. It's like the exact same talking points coming from like Western people. I'm like, why? That's the thing I wonder. A second thing is, unfortunately, if you brand yourself as a person of a certain political persuasion, you kind of have to stick with it.
Yep.
Like, could you imagine, talking to Ben Shapiro, could you imagine if Ben came out and was like, you know what? I kind of don't like Donald Trump, if for no other reason, just because morally he's an atrocious human being.
He was sort of there in the beginning. I mean, I haven't really followed what Ben has done of late, but in the beginning, he was someone who would make the right concessions to basic sanity and ethics.
That is
around
true.
Trump. I mean, he was obviously much more concerned about what was happening on the left, but he thought January 6th was
An insurrection, he said the day after.
I mean, just a shattering of norms of a sort that we would agree with. But I don't know why he's not essentially
Because
a
he
Mitt
doesn't want to
Romney
lose
or
his
a Liz
business.
Cheney, or there are obviously Republicans who have discovered the line past which they would not be dragged, and they agree with us about Trump. So I don't understand what's happened to people who are kind of split
Because Ben
the
Shapiro's
baby
a
there.
piece of shit.
I mean, I guess it's audience capture on some level, or it would be the ruination of their business. I mean, seeing the breakup between Ben and Candace was somewhat instructive insofar as I did see it. I mean, I think I missed 95% of it again because I'm not online, but I saw enough to know
Candace Owens is a
what
vile
Ben
piece of
has
shit.
been getting from his
grifter, but
audience,
that's
and
another-
just how much so much of his audience doesn't love the Jews. Yeah, I mean, what do you think is happening there? Is it just economics?
Yeah, it's like you said, like, well, in the beginning, it seems like they're on board with being more critical, but then as time goes on and the party coalesces around Trump, and Trump is absolutely a cult of personality, and he engenders like cultish, obsession and adoration, there is no room for disagreement. So
Right.
one, on a numbers level, that's just factual. Like, Donald Trump enjoys very wide and very deep support from conservative voters. So the media is going to reflect that as well.
That's
You
right.
can see this in the Dominion lawsuit versus Fox, by the way, that the deposition, the exhibits that they had in their pretrial stuff was fascinating. There are so many slides of people at Fox News saying, this is a lie. We know this is a lie, but my God, we're losing, 30% of our viewership to Newsmax and OAN. So I guess we're going to have to tell the lie to keep our viewers.
Absolutely
it's so
disgusting.
clear. Like, they won that case. Well, they didn't win it. Fox settled right before trial because they knew they were going to lose that case. One of the
They're
largest settlements, I believe,
disgusting
in
human
corporate
beings.
history for public settlements for defamation.
And we even call them human beings.
Yeah, you see that. And also, that's not an accident. It's not just a result of numbers. It's also incredibly intentional by Donald Trump. He always reminds people. He did it the day of his speech on the ellipse on January 6th. He says, I helped these people get elected. Not going to do it anymore. I helped these people win their elections, and they don't remember that. When he was talking to Raffensperger, he said, I was such a schmuck for helping this Kent
Stay
loser
with us.
Kemp
I'll be
get
right
elected. What a
back.
loser I was for doing that. And he, he did it in Georgia. He didn't want to campaign or help those people because Raffensperger and Kemp wouldn't play ball with helping him steal the election in Georgia. Trump does this very intentionally. He wouldn't go on Fox News. Man, after they called Arizona, he was so mad, and he stopped calling into their shows, and he was, retweeting and reposting OAN more. So if you don't play ball with him, he will try to destroy you by not working with you anymore and by constantly degrading you. And the followers and the fans, they pick up on that and they act accordingly. So it's hard when you got a business like, man, am I going to cover Trump honestly and have my entire business go bankrupt because no conservative is going to watch me and nobody on the left, no offense, is turning into Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire? Or do you play ball?
But doesn't it still strike you as fundamentally astonishing that Trump has been able to
This is good. Listen.
succeed the way he has? That there was that kind of audience that was willing to become a cult of personality around such a, on some levels, just such an unimpressive person.
Exactly.
I mean, he is just so obviously a fraud, right? I mean, he really is
know.
a game show host who
He's
pretended to be a great businessman. And he's a Mark Burnett confection,
Right, that's all it's about.
And I mean, it's not that he has no talents. I mean, he's entertaining, right?
See,
he
I
can be
disagree.
funny, but I mean, he's barely
I don't think he's funny at all.
competent at that, really. It's not like you have an entertainer of the talent of somebody like Jamie Foxx deciding to be a demagogue, right? I mean, he's just basically entertaining, and I do think that the fact that so many people find him funny counts for an enormous amount
I don't
of
find him
his
funny at
political
all.
success. I mean, just whatever happens at a debate, to be able to say, only Rosie O'Donnell or whatever his other laugh lines were, that's just guarantees your victory at that stage in the primary, given the nature of our politics. But it does, I mean, I've always thought of him as a kind of evil Chauncey Gardner.
Exactly.
And I think this probably
I'm
undersells
gonna
his
stop
gifts,
it
such
there.
as they are, but
By the way, the reference, if younger people may not know, Chauncey Gardner, that was from a movie, Being There. It was a novel by Jerzy Kosinski, and it's the story of this guy. His name is Chauncey Gardner, and he's the gardener, and he's like a dimwit. He's just this idiot, and somehow inadvertent, it's not like he knows anything, but he ends up becoming president. And it's unwittingly, like people are amazed. People think he's brilliant and he's actually an idiot. And that's the reference. Trump is an evil Chauncey Gardner. Because Trump is not smart. We all know this. He's got like a crafty street wise thing. He does have good political instincts, but he's a dumb fuck. We all know this. The dude has never read a book in his entire life. He's dumb as fuck, you know? That whole Wharton thing is all bullshit. Even his high school transcripts, you can't get that. He can't read, and there's information about, we've all known this, like his family hid the fact he has a learning disability. And you could tell when he's reading from the teleprompter, he reads really slow, and the inflection points are off, and this, and then he looks up, and then he kind of impromptu. He reads like a bad fourth grader. He's got a learning disability. He can't read. He can't read. Barely literate. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. I love Sam Harris, and I love Destiny. So, 2 generations, you know, let's see, I think Destiny's 34, so he's a millennial, and Sam Harris is a Xer. Okay, peace, everyone. Okay, some great insight there. I just thought that was excellent. So yeah, I highly recommend Sam Harris's podcasts, Waking Up, and Destiny. Destiny streams all day, every day for hours. Okay, and then like and subscribe here to Taper Talk. It helps with the algorithm. Okay, peace, love, and understanding.